The year was 1987, Queensland, Australia. On a remote property, the Rylance family lived. Their home, a small timber house, nestled near Canungra. It was supposed to be just another quiet night, but this night would be different. Amy Rylance and her husband Keith were asleep, or at least, they had gone to bed. Suddenly, in the dead of night, the impossible happened. A moment that would divide their lives into before and after. Amy Rylance was an ordinary woman, a wife, a mother, living an ordinary life in rural Australia. And then, in the early hours, around 3 a.m., she was gone, vanished from her bed, without a trace. Keith woke up. He reached for Amy. She wasn't there. The mystery had begun. Keith Rylance would later recount what he experienced. It wasn't just that Amy was missing. He said he saw something. A brilliant, blinding light. It filled their bedroom, pulsating, unnatural. He described it as being intensely bright. This wasn't a car's headlights or a searchlight. This was something else entirely, something terrifying, and utterly alien. He said the light seemed to be focused, coming from outside, through the window. But it wasn't just illuminating the room. It felt like it had a presence, a purpose. Keith claimed he saw Amy, caught in this beam of light, levitating, rising from the bed, as if being pulled upwards by an unseen force. He tried to reach her, but he said he was paralyzed, unable to move. Amy was apparently silent, just this slow, inexorable ascent. The light then retracted, leaving Keith alone in the sudden, shocking darkness. 2 days. Amy was gone for 2 agonizing days. Keith was beside himself. The children confused and scared. The police searched. Friends and neighbors helped, but there was no sign of Amy Rylance. Then the phone call came. Amy had been found. She was alive. But the relief was mixed with utter bewilderment, because where she was found made no sense. She was discovered near Mackay, roughly 800 kilometers from her home. How does a person travel 800 kilometers in 2 days? Without a car? Without a plane ticket? Without anyone seeing her? She was found wandering by the side of a road, disoriented, dehydrated, sunburned. Her clothes were the same ones she'd been wearing to bed. She had no memory of how she got there, just fragments, confusing, disturbing images, amnesia, the doctors might say. But was it that simple? Think about that distance. 800 kilometers. It's not a short walk, especially not in 2 days. The authorities were baffled. Slowly, haltingly, Amy began to remember, or at least pieces of what she said happened. She described being on some kind of craft. It wasn't an airplane or a helicopter. The interior was strange, metallic, curved walls. There were lights, but not like normal lights. She felt a sense of being observed, scrutinized. It's a common theme in these kinds of stories, the feeling of being a specimen. But for Amy, this wasn't a story. This was her memory, a terrifying, intrusive memory she couldn't shake. She tried to make sense of it, but how could she? Then there were the beings. She said they weren't human. Tall, very tall and slender, with pale, almost luminous skin. Their heads were large, their eyes even larger, dark, almond-shaped. They didn't speak, not with words anyway. The UFO Research Centre Queensland, led by Diane Harrison at the time, took the case seriously. They documented Keith's eyewitness account of the light. They recorded Amy's fragmented memories of the craft and beings. They noted the physical evidence: Amy's disoriented state, her dehydration, the sunburn, and crucially, the inexplicable 800-kilometer displacement. There were no easy answers, no conventional explanations that fit all the facts. A prank? A hoax? Highly unlikely given the circumstances. The trauma seemed real. The details, however bizarre, were consistent. The center compiled a report, one of many such reports in their files. But the Rylance case stood out, for its clarity, for its stark impossibility. What about other evidence? Physical traces? Reports from the time are scarce on this. Were there marks on the ground? Unusual radiation readings? These details often get lost, or are never properly investigated, especially when the primary evidence is testimony. And testimony, however compelling, is always open to interpretation, or dismissal, especially when it involves lights in the sky and pale beings. So the case remained in that gray area, not quite proven, but stubbornly, disturbingly, not disproven either. A puzzle with too many missing pieces, or perhaps pieces from a different puzzle altogether. For Amy and Keith Rylance, life was never the same. How could it be?